OCA Greater Houston's citizenship forums will be virtual. Please help us facilitate the process by filling out your application on Citizenship Works platform. Go online to citizenshipworks.org/portal/Houston and make sure to fill out all the information possible. If you have any questions, please email erica.chambers@ocahouston.org or call 281-968-9131 for the next steps. Make sure to fill out your application so you can join us online for the virtual visit.
Hi, my name is Jean Lin. I'm a licensed physical therapist in Houston, Texas. I've been a therapist for more than 40 years and in private practice since 1998. And today we're going to share about back care with everybody because, you know, since with all this technology make us sitting down in front of the desk working on a computer, then it's a laptop, and then worse, is with cell phones. Everybody sit down more, even lean over, bend over. We stay in the same positions for hours at work or at your leisure times. And of course, it creates a lot of the neck and the back problem. And of course, with all this time you're spending on your high-tech, toys, you have less time to get up, not to mention to exercise. So, therefore, it creates more problems. And then, with all this pandemic since last year, more people stay home, work from home, and then when you work from home, you have all the furnitures not as, let's say, ergonomic compliant as the good ones in your office. So, more people complain about neck and back problems. Of course, not most people do not have a knowledge about ergonomics with your workstations, as a professional does. And so by the time we reopened last year in May, we started seeing patients coming back with neck and back problems, and they've been hurting for months. And then just put up until they cannot put it off anymore because it just hurt too much. So how do we get ourselves into a condition like that? So, is there anything we can do to prevent the back problems? Of course we can. So we're going to talk about the back care program today. Before we start talking about how we care for the back, I think I'll talk a little bit about the anatomy of the spine. Today we'll focus on the lower back because neck is in completely different programs, different issues. As you know, we have 24 spines, 7 in the neck, 5 in the lower back and the lumbar spine. The rest of them is the middle part, thoracic spine. Thoracic spine is pretty close to the part that's closer to the lower back, the lumbar spine. Of course, it can affect here, okay? But that's not what we're going to be talking about. We're mainly going to talk about the 5 lumbar spines today. As you can see, 5 lumbar spine, then we have a tailbone. There's only one tailbone. There's 2 pelvic bones, right? So, as you can see, there's a lot of joints in the lower back. First, the joints between each spine, one on each side. 5, actually 6, because there's another one between the lumbar spines and the tailbone, which is a very big joint. And then there's a joint that most people are not aware because it's not a joint that you can do any movement, but it's important. A lot of people have disc problems from very poor postures. We call it SI joint, sacroiliac joint. Iliac is this bone. And as you can see, this bone our tailbone is actually pretty thick. This is not quite a true size, but it's pretty close to a petite size woman, okay? So if you're bigger, your bone is bigger, then this joint will be bigger. As you can see, this tailbone, sacrum, it's not thin. It has like this much. That means where two bone meets, you have a joint. This joint is about this wide, this long. It can get locked. How did it get locked? A lot of time, there's a lot of muscles. We're talking about the muscles in the lower back and actually the hip areas with all this right here. If you remove everything from your abdominal area, remove all your guts and you look from the front, that's what it looks like. That's the spine. You can see the muscles. This is actually a hip muscles. It actually move down, start from the about midpoint of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Your L1, the first lumbar spine, and actually attach to all of them, and then move into abdominal area and come out to the front. It goes from here, and then cross over, come out of here, and ends here in your groin area. See that? And then from here, you have the quadriceps, your leg muscles, your knee muscles. So this is actually playing a very important part for it contributes a lot to our back problem, because this is a hip muscles. What it does, it pulls the legs up. So a lot of runners have a problem with these muscles because it's simply just too tight. They never stretch out. Second, it's very deep. So like on all those machines, equipment we got, like ultrasound, electrostim, actually cannot reach there. It's covered by all these layers of back muscles. On top of it, it's the deepest layer of the muscles on the spine. We have other smaller muscles on the spine. Cannot really see very well, maybe here. Or this after you remove like 3, 4 layers out of it, it is the muscle that's directly attached to the spine here. And that's pretty much what the meat that you're eating when you are eating on the rib or whatever. They are important in providing stability to the spinal joints, to the spine. And so most people, even those people that exercise a lot and they think they have a very strong abdominal muscle, back muscles, they could have a very weak, we call this is paraspinal muscles, the spinal stabilizer. With these muscles, their main function actually provides stability for the spines. So when the spine is not stable, it's very easy to get wear and tear, right? It's a joint. And then, of course, the second reason for people to lose stability in the joints is poor postures. Good posture, you stand straight. As you can see, we have a natural curve of the spine. Right? And people that tend to stand like this. First, we call it pink panther. That's what pink panther look like. The back goes down, okay? So if we now this curve, this is a natural curve called lordosis. If we now this curve here, right? And then of course, when you flatten out this, just a little strength. This goes down, so as you remember, these muscles, it's just going to get strength in the front. So for people who has tight muscles here, you see they cannot really keep a correct posture, okay? But there are people simply just never had a good postures in their whole life. And then of course, usually those people don't exercise. So of course their muscles are not strong enough or do not have a very good muscle tone. So they create more postural problems. So that's actually probably make up more than 50% of the back pain patient we are treating, okay? Most people come in and says, do you think I need an x-ray? I said, no, you don't. About only probably less than 10% of patients really needs an x-ray on the back when they have a back issues. Because if you have a disc problem, you cannot see on the x-ray. You can guess there may be one, okay? And x-ray can see fractures, maybe arthritis of the joints. And so it takes an MRI to see the disc. But most of the time, we are treating patients with musculoskeletal problems. So because there's a lot more muscles other than the one I talk about. So you see all those muscles, and then as you see, muscle goes down to here. So all the hip, and not to mention all the pelvic muscles. We have muscles everywhere. We have muscle here, abdominal muscle in the front. Muscle come up from here to the hip. And there's other muscles on the side that goes down to the legs, the hip muscles, even knee muscles. Your quadriceps starts up above in the pelvic area too. And then, so all the muscles are actually, you can say, connected, okay? From this to here, this to there, this to that. So anything, so like you have a bad knee, bad ankle on one side, you're pretty much going to eventually have back problems. Or if you look at the spine as one whole thing, a lot of time we have patients with back issues, eventually will develop neck problems, vice versa. So we treat patients as one whole thing. You cannot just look at this. So whatever, if you put yourself in the good, correct postures, you can reduce the chance of developing back problems quite a bit. Because most of the problem is really just from a poor posture. And that's what we're going to be talking about. Let's get a chair over here. Now for the back, for the lower back, most of the time, first is standing. And as I say, you stand straight, okay? Standing straight, that means you're not sure is this. And we see people, their back may be straight, but they're here. And actually, as soon as you slouch and pushing your shoulder, if your shoulder drops forward, this back will go this immediately. You'll go back. Or you just stand up there and put your hands on your spine and just slouch. You feel it, your spine just being pushed backwards. Okay. No, 另外一种意思. Go back. 不是这种. So the other things you probably want to, yeah. Yeah, okay. So when we sit, we recommend you to sit in the chair that's straight. It's straight back, but not 90%, 90 degrees straight. About like 100 degrees, 95, 100 degrees will be perfect. This actually is a very good chair. Let's turn the chair around so they can sideways so they can see it. Okay, now sit all the way to the back of the chair. Okay, you should lean on it, okay? And then if you have to sit long hours, we recommend you to use a lumbar cushions. It fits right there, the small of your back. That's where your waistline is. Why? Because I already say we have this curve in the spine. So it will help to support here. If your lumbar spine is supported, you will be sitting straight. You cannot slouch over, actually. It's very uncomfortable. And if you lean forward, it's uncomfortable. It's not that comfortable either. So that will remind you at least to sit up straight. All right, then you say, sit up straight, I cannot work on the computer anymore. Yes, your desk will come up to here. So you will be here, okay? And that's a good posture for you to sit in. And then, of course, we'll hear people just worry about, well, I cannot sit like this watching TV because that's what they do after dinner every night. And that's actually where the problem is, okay? And so, but just at least while your back is hurting, you sit like this. Or, like you're sitting, you have to sit a long time, like such as in the airplane. You're making a long flight or long drive. This is ideal. Ideally, it should be like this. With your back supported, you actually can sit down for a longer time without feeling, without putting any pressures on the, like stress on your lower back soft tissues. That's what we're talking about. Okay. Now, if you're not so sure about your chair, this cushion is actually designed by a physical therapist in New Zealand. And then that's something we started using in 1980s. It has a strap, it can be strapped down to the chair. And this is not a very big one, it's a little smaller, but it needs to be firm. It doesn't need to be big, and it doesn't need to be, if you need to put in a very big cushions, from the top all the way down to here because your chair is too big, too deep for you. You need to actually change the chair. The chair is not ergonomic enough for you. We're not, usually if I tell patients, well, your chair is not right for you. A patient was going to say, but my chair is expensive. It has nothing to do with the price. The money that you pay is if it fits you. It's your size or not, okay? It's your size or not. Because we treat a lot of patients that are working in the bank, law office, where they, the image they want to present to their customers and clients is very important. So everybody has the same chair, same size, but we all build differently. So when we talk about ergonomic, it's to fit your size and your chair and your desk. It's called workstations, right? So all this together. If you have to get your all the muscle that you don't need to use supported, they need to be relaxed. If you put yourself in the poor postures that put some unnecessary stress over some soft tissues, that tissues, after you put it in the positions with under stress like that for hours, you bet it's going to get in trouble. They're going to get tight, and then they're overstretched over a long period of time. The muscle is going to become weak or tight or both. Okay, so postures and a good support on your back is very important. Now we'll talk about the standing. You're not so sure about if you're standing right. Come here. I would suggest you can try this. Standing, when you're at work, everybody work like this on the computer, at least towards the afternoon, after hours. You just keep leaning over. So it's a good idea that you stand leaning against the wall. Everything you touch to check your postures. And also, to do this will help you to feel if you are having a good posture or not. Everything you touch, and you just have a little bit, like if you put in a fist, if it's right here, very, very tightly, you cannot just go in and out. So I can barely do this. I can do this. So her posture is very good. That's the correct posture in standing. So a lot of people has very poor posture, so this is what we do. It's kind of like a posture correction that you can do it all the time. Okay, thank you. So let's back to the common problems with spine. Pretty much, I told you, most of them is some muscle problems. But we also see a lot of people with chronic back problems. And turn out it's just all muscles. But because the muscle gets to be so tight, especially if the muscle in the gluteal area, in the butt, gets very tight. Everybody knows about sciatic nerve. This is nerve. It passes through here. If this muscle is very tight, especially the deepest one, we call it peripheral muscle, pear-shaped muscles. That one gets very tight. It can put pressures on the sciatic nerve. It can create symptoms kind of like sciatica, but it's not a true sciatica. It can also have pain shooting down from lower back if this, I call it SI joint, get locked and the ligaments or something else, other tissues, get caught in here, and if they get inflamed, it can also shoot down here. Now those are not true sciatica, but it feels like it because patient will say, well, my pain radiates, I hurt in the back, and it radiates, it goes down to my legs, back of my legs, front of my legs. Some people will even say, my whole leg hurts, but both sides of the leg hurts. And we pretty much just based on the symptoms that we can make a diagnosis of where the problem is, because you have to find out exactly where the problem comes from. If it's just from poor postures, it's actually not that easy to correct a posture. People have been having the same posture for years, so it's not that easy, but we just, so pretty much every time, in every visit, I keep educating patients about their posture, their ergonomics, keep changing. And for those that really understands and start convert everything in their office and started watching their postures, especially for the neck. Once they started keeping the good posture with the head and the neck and the shoulders. The problems, especially from like pinched nerve from the herniated disc, actually will decrease quite a bit, okay? Because it has something to do with the posture and the movement. All right, so it's a lot more complicated than, when we started treating patients than just talking about it, because there's so many muscles involved, okay? Abdominal muscles, even abdominal muscle have more than one, and not to mention how many muscles we have in the back. And then all those pelvic area muscles, pelvic floor muscles, we have muscles down here too. And these are the hip muscles. And then we have other hip muscles. So what I do is that patient present the pain in here. A lot of people hurt here, right in the middle of the back. And actually, this is the area of almost nothing. It's just pretty much skin and bone. You touch your back, okay? Where your spine meets your tailbone. There's nothing there, right? You can pretty much feel your bone, okay? So, of course, there's more than skin and bone. There's other tissues. You can see all this white thing. We call it fascia. It's all the tendons and fascias combined right here. It's fascia thick. Right here. These are not as, it's also a type of soft tissues. It can also get tight, it can get injured, it can have scar tissues on it. It can cause a lot of problems. But it's affected by anything that contribute to this, so, or directly or indirectly. All these muscles, you see how many we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And all this, all in the front, all this. So if you complain you have a pain here, this is a very common type of a back problem. Then you come here and says, oh, I'm hurting right, where you hurt? I'm hurting right in the middle of my back. And I'll tell you, I'll have to check everything before I can tell you what your problem is. And a lot of time, you guess what? Especially for women, we have a lot of tight muscles. And even muscles out of balance in the pelvic area, hip areas, and the very weak abdominal muscles. Most people have very weak abdominal muscles. Back muscle usually is stronger than abdominal muscles, right? You wonder why, right? And then also there's another problem with the younger people, especially for guys. They exercise, they go to the gyms, they have very muscular. But I found out there's a lot of the problems, is they exercise where they can see. Where can you see? In the front. So they have very good biceps, pectoral muscles, and they have all the 6-8 pecs here. And then turn around, we look at the back, and say, what do you hurt in the back? And look at the back. Oh, touch the back muscles, kind of a soft, lower muscle tone. Why? Because forgot or not doing enough to strengthen their back muscles. Your muscle needs to be balanced, front and the back, up and down, on so many muscles. So usually if we give patients a back exercise program, it will involve all the muscles, including the legs. Any tight muscles need to be stretched. Any weak muscles need to be strengthened. Okay, or it can be both. It can be weak and tight. Depends what we need to achieve. And the main purpose of doing exercise, of course, get rid of the pain. Yes, you can get rid of pain, low back pain, by doing exercises. But we may have some basic exercise program for the back, but actually every problem is different because everybody has a different issues with their muscles or other soft tissues. Because of course you can still have a problem with your joints. You can have degeneration in the joint here. In other words, in the other joints, this can be arthritis. But in the spine, we have a different term for it. Or you can have a herniated disc, such as this, without knowing it. It could be, you could really have a herniated disc. And So first we need to make the right diagnosis, and if it's just the muscles, then we check every single muscle out, and then we design an exercise program specifically for the muscle that you have a problem with. So we can go all the way down to your toes, your foot, because sometimes it's because the person has an old problems with the ankle or the knee. And then because you cannot use your muscle correctly, so eventually create a back problem. So I may need to fix down here before I can fix here. So in other words, basic exercise program for the back, you can just work on this, work on abdominal muscles. But in order to get rid of the problems 100%, you may need to address to the other area also, right? So eventually we will be strengthening all the muscles in around here, because I get asked all the time, can I wear a brace? Can I wear a corset, back support? I will usually tell them, because if you don't have a very acute back pain, that means you cannot stand up straight without any support because it hurt too much. Yes, you can wear back support so you can get up, at least like go to the bathroom. But if you just like, they make me feel better. So I've been wearing a back brace for years. That may not be a good idea, because your muscle get lazy, because you have something to support you to make you straight. So muscle gets lazy, it gets weak. It gets weak, you're going to lose something we call stability of the area here. This is also our core area. When your core area gets weak, it gets unstable, it creates more problems. Not just your back, it can be your hip or even somewhere else. So nowadays, we not only work on back muscles, strengthening it, we also work on stabilizing it, the joints, and your core muscles, okay? And core muscles training is a little bit different. We aim more for like endurance, like you do exercise and you hold. So Pilates is a pretty good exercise, emphasizing in the core area, core stability. Like yoga is more like in the stretching area. So they have a different purpose, and you really need to have good postures and get your muscles in the, let's say, proper positions all the time. Align, so your muscle, your joints can have good alignment, right? So you will reduce the chance of having a back pain. And then if you really want to know what to do with your back exercises, I advise you to really go to a professional, like a physical therapist. So if you really have a back problem, don't just pick up something from the internet and start doing it. What if you have a herniated disc? You may be doing something wrong by pushing it out further. Or you have something in the joints. Without knowing it, you overstretch and cause inflammation of your joints. But if you don't have any back or any hip, pelvic problems, you just want to do something for your back, and pretty much just a good back exercises, especially something they were required to use the back muscle here, such as swimming. It's a good exercise. And then any sports actually is not bad, but just playing something, especially like something like running, as you look at it, it's really a repeated motion type of exercise. You have to remember to stretch the muscles back out after you finish, because you just keep running, and I already show you how these muscles getting really tight because you use it to run like thousands of times on each side. You can pull, okay? And a lot of times, if you have, we don't have a feet or even our knees exactly the same on both sides. So maybe this side has a little bow-legged, the other side doesn't. This side is a little knock knee, so a little like K, you know. This goes in and this is straight, or both goes in like an X or like an O. So these are all going to affect here. And then we cannot really do anything to change the alignment of your other joints, like your knee or the ankles. So if that creates some problems for the muscle up in here, because you cannot walk or stand correctly, and it creates some problem for the muscles, then you pretty much just frequently stretch those muscles out. And yes, we can create that. So like almost a pain-free back by watching out for everything else around it. So yes, we see that all the time. Like you have a one bad knee, like you lose one cartilage in here, like you wear out or you have an injury. It can eventually pull and make the spine crooked to one side, to the shorter side. Even though you only lose maybe like 1.5 centimeters of the space in the knee because you lose a cartilage in there. That's enough eventually to pull the spine towards that side. So you have a condition we call scoliosis. We see that on the older people a lot. And see it on the younger people too, because there's also a congenital problem with scoliosis. Those people pretty much will have back pain on and off in their entire life because the spine is not straight. And so sometimes it's because your legs is not equal. Of course, that's going to affect the back directly if one side is shorter. And it happens a lot in the teenagers because one side develops faster than the other one because it's their dominant side or something genetic. But most of the time it's the dominant leg. Those kind of scoliosis, if it's acquired, it actually can be corrected, adjusted, if you do it in time, okay? Such as just making them equal by putting a heel lift inside. Or we can just, and then of course, there was something, specific exercise we do to correct the curvature of the spine. Whatever we are doing with all the exercise is to restore the normal alignment of your spine. If not, then at least we go for just making it straight, one flat line, okay? It's better than like going back to here or here. So, and that's pretty much the best way that you can take care of your back. If your lower back is good, pretty much it will help a lot with your neck. But neck is a completely different issue. And if we have a chance in the future that we can talk about it, because it's a lot more complicated than the lower back. Because on the neck, it's the shoulders and the head and our shoulders. And our arm does a lot more than our leg do. So if we have a chance to talk about it later, and otherwise we'll conclude our back care program for today. Thank you.
OCA, Asian Pacific American Advocates, is a national nonprofit organization dedicated to advancing the social, political, and economic well-being of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. Based in Washington, D.C., with over 50 chapters around the country, we engage in issues like immigration, education, and fair treatment, among many others. We also provide resources and programs in order to build a pipeline of AAPI leaders so that our community can have a seat at every table.